Hello, everyone. This is Mike Robinson, and we're going to talk about work ethic certification. The district is rolling out the work ethic certification program at the middle school level this year. They initially rolled this out about 10 years ago at the high school level, and they have recently shared this with the elementary level. Now that we're sort of recovering from the pandemic and that we are starting to be in class 5 days a week, we're having more of our students here on a 5 day a week basis. They are going to roll this out at the middle school level. So today, I just want to help you understand what work ethic certification is briefly. And mainly, we're going to do that by focusing on the grade 8 standards because that's where the majority of our work is really going to come in. The idea is that we are going to score students on whether or not they have met each of the grade 8 standards. We're going to focus on one standard a month, and we're actually going to have a process that is a little bit different than how we normally input our regular grades to input whether they met or did not meet a score in Infinite Campus. So essentially, it'll be like a true false. You'll either say they did or didn't, and I'll show you how to do that here. Like I said, the work ethic certification program started about 10 years ago. I'm not going to go into too deep a dive on that, but when you get this slide deck, you're going to be able to click a link right here, and it will take you to the district's webpage for work ethic certification so that if you're unfamiliar, you can get a little bit more present with it and you can understand what the goal is. And there's also a link there to a deeper dive on the grade 8 standards and kind of their rationale. We're not going to go that far in this video. We're going to be focused more on the criteria, what that looks like in the classroom, how we can score a student to decide whether they've met or not met the standard. But it may be beneficial information when you're trying to explain why we're going over this. So, the grade 8 work ethic standards are, in order, standard 1, attendance and tardiness. Number 2 is personal responsibility and accountability. Number 3 is academic performance. Number 4 is work habits and persistence. Number 5 is punctuality, preparedness, and organization. Number 6 is respectful interaction. Number 7 is cooperation and teamwork. And number 8 is community service. Now, even though there are 8, and we want all students to exhibit all 8 of these to different degrees, remember, we're only going to take a month at a time, one standard at a time. And we're actually already through September when we've already been focusing on attendance. We got here for a couple weeks in August, and we've already, with the district's High Attendance Month initiative, been focusing on our students coming to school. How are we doing with that? You got an email earlier in the month talking about what it is we can do to encourage this, and now we're just kind of putting some finer details on this rollout. Remember, our goal this year, we're just showing the kids what the standards are. Now, as far as instruction goes, there's not going to be very much. Okay, we are going to do this through our second period classes. Question was asked, can we do this through a different class, or what happens when a student changes schedules? We looked at this, and at all periods, there are going to be at least a few students, if not several students, who are affected to some degree by schedule changes at every period of the day. So the classes were built with the second period rosters in mind, and although we've already had some students switch due to already scoring, we're still going to roll with this through second period classes because that's when we can get the biggest bang for our buck as far as teacher to student ratio. Now, again, one standard per month is all we're going to focus on, and this is not going to take a great deal of instructional time. When I met with the district, they said that you could look at this once a week, maybe just talk about it for 10 to 15 minutes, and that could be it. You can go back to your regular thing. This does not have to eat up a whole bunch of time. We are not completely rearranging units and lessons to make this the be-all, end-all. This is just making sure that the students are aware of these and are cognizant that we are evaluating their performance on these standards. Okay. So, one way that you could do this, all right, you could take a look at our monthly focus calendar here, is we're already through September. Today's September 30th, at the time of this recording, and this focus has been attendance and tardiness. So let's say we were able to have started this on September 1st. One way that you could have introduced this to your second period class for that first 10 minutes is to ask them, as a bell ringer, why do you think attendance at school is important and how can tardiness cause problems? Give them a couple minutes on a sheet of paper to respond, then maybe have them do a turn and talk with a partner, then have a class discussion. Then we can actually define the terms attendance and tardiness and then set a goal for them by saying we want you to have 6 or fewer absences for this month. And even connect it to the idea of a high attendance month as you see over there on the right. Now, obviously, this is the 30th, and we won't be able to introduce this particular standard this month in this way. But that is a pretty good strategy for introducing a standard going forward. You can also see that we're not necessarily covering the standards in numerical order. Rather, we are focusing on the most basic skills at the beginning of the year. Then as we move on toward the end of the year, we're kind of increasing the complexity and dependability factor of each of those. So you can see towards the end of the year, we work on more in-depth things such as cooperation and teamwork, personal responsibility, accountability, work habits. Whereas at the beginning of the year, it's simple things like just showing up, being where you're supposed to be, have your materials, things like that. So let's talk about scoring students on the monthly focus. How do I know if a kid's met a standard? Well, for each standard, there's a short little rubric, 2 or 3 criteria, and it's really simple. Most of these are either the kid did it or they didn't do it. It's just cut and dry. I do like that about this system. So, for example, standard 1. When we're looking back through our second period roster, which is basically the roster that's in the work ethic certification activity, you're going to take a look at that kid and say, have they had more than 6 full days missed? And that's going to be really easy to see. Either they have or they haven't. There's no debating, what that is. That's just simple math. It's easy to look for. The second criteria might be a little more subjective to you. It says the student consistently shows effort to show up to class on time. And this is about maybe and your kid. Is this a kid who is always just kind of sneaking in, right, the effort? Are they somebody who maybe is showing up on time, but they're always asking to, get out of class, go somewhere, talk to somebody, sign up on Airtable, go here, go there? Maybe you think that's not consistent. If you're worried about making sure that you're being fair to all students, my suggestion, at least for this first standard, since it's so easily measurable, is just to give them credit for the second criteria if they meet the first. So if you look and it says, okay, they've had 5 full days missed, then go ahead and give them credit for the first one and the second one if you're worried about being an unfair judge. A question we got about attendance is, what about students who are quarantined or they had an EHO or they were on a field trip that was excused by school? Those all count as exemptions, which means they'll be coded differently. What I would encourage you to do is just click on a student, then click on the attendance tab in Infinite Campus, and it'll give you the number that they actually missed that count against them. We also have criteria for standards 5 through 8. And again, you will get this slide deck with the video, so don't worry about having to take screenshots or write all this down. I'll make sure that you have this. And I'll also send this out each month related to the appropriate standard. So now that we know what work ethic is, we have an idea of the grade 8, and we have an idea of what our monthly focus is going to be, and that each monthly focus also has some criteria to meet. The end game is making sure that once we know whether a student has or has not met something, how do we record that? Well, we're going to record that using Infinite Campus. Okay. This is going to be a little bit different. You will not have to go to your grade book. You will not actually create an assignment for these students. This is going to be really easy. This is actually already set up for you. It's set up for all teachers who have a second period, and we're going to look at this right now. The most important part of this is that when you log into Infinite Campus and you're in the instruction control center here, over in the left menu, I always went to gradebook first. They've actually down further on the left. It's under class serve and above assignment overview. You can see it's highlighted there. There's a section that says post grades. So you're not going to go to gradebook and hit like the post grade button. We're not looking for that. but you're actually looking in this left menu right here for the post grades menu. Once you go there, then the next big thing you have to do is go up to where it says term. Right now, by default, it is set to Q1. You're going to change that to Q4. There are lots of boring technical reasons why we have to do it through Q4, but this video is already at 10 minutes and I've got a few more things to talk about, so just trust me that this is what we have to do. Once you have selected Q4, then you're going to click on the section drop-down menu. And you will notice that below all your class sections, so if you've got 6-period plan, you'd see 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then below all those, you're going to see it's technically an activity instead of a class, but you're going to see work ethic certification. And you're going to have students who were originally or at one point on your 2nd period roster. Now, I understand that after the iReady test, there were some students who had schedule changes or something happened. For this first standard, that's going to be okay. I want you to go ahead and score the students who are on this list. Even though they may not be in your class right now for 2nd period, because attendance is such an easily trackable thing, no matter where a kid is in the building, we can go ahead and do that this month. I am working on a backup that I can complete for you all, but it'll take a minute, so I'll get you some more information about that after fall break. Once you have selected the work ethic certification drop down in the section menu, then when you go over to task, you're going to see that instead of just quarter grade, you have a whole host of standards. Those match up, each one of these things match up with the criteria for the monthly focus standard. So for September, which is what we're going to look at this time, Standard 1. You can see Standard 1 has 2 different criteria. The first one says Standard 1, attendance no more than 6 full days. You'll select that criteria, and then you're going to mark it, and I'll show you how to do that. Or if you get to the point where you've already scored, criteria 1 for Standard 1, you'll go back and you'll actually score the second one, okay? So each criteria under a given standard will eventually have to have a score. But for right now, we're just going to pretend like we're scoring the no more than 6 full days have been missed. So let's say we selected that. You can see it's highlighted up there in the top right. So we're looking at the no more than 6 full days. The easiest way to do this is to click on this box right here in yellow where it says fill percent, grade, or comment. When you click on that box in this menu, it's going to give you some options. What you're going to do, you're going to see all kinds of stuff. These comments probably look really familiar to you because this is what goes on report cards. And you can do this through the gradebook if you're trying to do that. But we're in a different menu and we actually have some other options here. You're going to check grade. You're going to actually physically put a check in that box. And then you're also going to select, once you've hit the checkbox, that drop-down menu. Now, once you select that drop-down menu, you're going to have 2 options, 0 or 1. It's that simple. 0 means they did not hit the standard, 1 means they did. Nothing more complicated than that. Okay? So, let's say that Mike Robinson was absent for 10 days, unexcused. Didn't bring a doctor's note, parent's note. Even if he did, those are, let's say he had 5 unexcused and 5 excused. That's still a total of 10 absences during September. So I would get a 0 on this particular criteria under Standard 1. But let's make sure that we understand what this looks like for all our kids. Remember, we were talking about this being a fill option. The majority of your kids probably this month hit their attendance mark. So when you hit the checkbox and you hit the drop down of 1, what's going to happen when you click OK on this pop-up menu is that you'll see that these students get filled in with a 1 all the way down. Now, let's say I've picked a student here and it looks like the 3rd one down. We did this screenshot just for an example. What would it look like if you had to go back and let's say you had one of your kiddos who didn't meet the criteria? Well, after you filled all your other students with a 1, you can simply go back and just change those couple who did not meet the criteria to a 0. You don't have to add in a percent. You don't have to add in a comment. You certainly can add a comment if you want to, but this first time around, I would probably just add a 1 or a 0. That would make it easy for you. Once you have every student marked as a 1 or a 0, indicating that they have met or did not meet the criteria that you are scoring, which again in the top right is attendance no more than 6 full days missed, then make sure you hit the almighty save button. If you don't hit save, it's not going to make sure that it records, which means that you'll do all these clicks and all these steps, and then it won't save and you'll get frustrated, and we don't want that. So please make sure you're hitting save once you have filled this in. After that, remember that you have to go back, because remember, Standard 1 had 2 different criteria. It had the 6 or fewer days missed, and it also had the student consistently shows effort, right? So that would look like this. If you select the student consistently shows effort, you'll do the exact same thing. You'll click on fill percent grade comment like you did at this step. This menu will pop up. You'll check the box beside grade. You'll click 1 under the drop-down menu. You'll make sure that you click OK on the pop-up. And then you'll go back and make any changes as necessary. Again, with attendance, if a student has met the criteria for 6 or fewer full days absent, unless you really think that the student did not meet the consistent effort, or you can back up that assumption that they didn't, for this month only, I would encourage you, if you gave them a 1 on criteria 1 for this, to go ahead and give them a 1 on this criteria as well. Obviously, once you've hit the criteria and you've filled in the 1s for everything, you'll hit save, and that's the work done. So I know that last bit can be a bit. I know that you might have to watch that a few times. You might have to call me to explain it. I don't mind to come down and help you on your plan or after school or whenever you need. That's what I'm here for. Just a review of what we were talking about in this video. We were trying to understand what the Work Ethic Certification Program is all about, as well as the Grade 8 standards. We now understand that there are scoring criteria for each one of the Grade 8 standards. We're going to be following a process that we just looked at to input student work ethic scores in Infinite Campus. So I'm going to set a goal for us. You're getting this on the 30th. So let's say that instead of trying to rush and do this all this week and cause a big bunch of stress before we go on fall break, let's see if we can get these September scores in for the attendance standard, which is Standard 1, by the end of the week after fall break. We do have some leeway on this. This is just a soft deadline, but I'd like to try to hit this. That way we can understand what kinks there are in the system, where the speed bumps are, and how we can best help you make this as seamless as possible. If you have any questions, please reach out to me or Miss Cassidy, and we'll do the best that we can to try to help you out.